The Quarantine Sessions podcast with J. Cole.
Hey Shannon,
Hey,
how's it going?
hi,
Welcome.
how are you?
Good. Thanks so much for coming on this live podcast. This is the first time you've done an Instagram live, I believe.
It is, and I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, and an honor for me to be the reason for your first Instagram live. And yeah, so just to get this conversation started. So I've I've read a lot of interesting things about you. It seems like you have had a really complex and in some ways polarized path. You were Miss Canada and you are now a reverend and you have been working with the MAPS organization in Canada, promoting psychedelics and working with their podcast. And I'm really curious about your kind of inception story. I think that a lot of people within psychedelic culture have these kinds of like superhero style inception stories. It's almost like that archetypal shamanic journey of death and rebirth. And how did you go from Miss Canada to Miss Perception? I liked that you had that on your YouTube. I think that that's a more fitting title for you now. And how did your path lead you to discover psychedelics and to get you involved in that movement?
It's a long story, so I'll give you the short version. But first of all, I just want to say thanks so much for having me here, and it's definitely an honor to be to be connected with you on this Instagram live. So I'll give you the short version, which isn't very short, but kind of been as all of ours are, right? But it's pretty much been a lifetime of, I guess you could say, coming back to truth, if that's a way to say it. It's like when you're a little child and you're laying on the grass looking up at the sky, and you know that that there's more to the world than just what you can see. I think it started like when I was 4 or 5. Just those questions come in, and it's so funny because my son is 8 now, and he's asking those questions. Mommy, where do we come from? Where what are we made of? What is the meaning of life? And all of those questions happen for some people, or most people, when we're at a young age. So it started young, and throughout life there were just multiple things that happened that weren't, I guess, in alignment with what the normal constructed society, you know, was. Um, it was just not normal. Different things were happening. I don't want to get too much into them because I would probably be talking for hours. But I guess I've had multiple awakenings through my life, and that kind of led me into getting into traversing different states of consciousness, I guess you could say. Interested in meditation, interested in, finding out what is beyond the body, what is beyond the mind. And that probably happened at least maybe 15, 20 years ago. And that's when I first got into spiritual counseling and, for myself, like finding out how I could go deeper into these different states, find out who I could find out who I was, because in society we're, taught to act a certain way and be a certain way and, follow this guideline that we're supposed to follow. And for me, that never seemed like the thing that I really wanted to ever do and I haven't ever done, which is why I've done so many different things that don't even match up to one another.
Mm-hmm.
And just because it's like, do what makes you happy, right? So multiple awakenings that, well, I'll speed it up a little bit. 2007, I guess I took my first yoga teacher training, and that was probably one of the biggest things that happened because at the same time I was in the running for Miss Canada. So when I had first kind of come into Miss Canada, it wasn't to be Miss Canada. It was actually strategic marketing for my charity. So I was working for charity at the time, and we were collecting grad dresses for women who couldn't afford to buy their own, because we were finding that a lot of graduates wouldn't go to their graduation because they couldn't afford to buy their grad dress. So I was in business and marketing at the time, and I was thinking, well, I was watching the Miss Universe pageant. I was thinking, well, what a better way to have a platform and get people to give more donations than be Miss Canada. So I was like, what the heck? I used to wrestle for the U of S wrestling team, the university wrestling team, so I can do the workout thing. I interview people for a living. I think I interviewed over 3,000 people a year and trained thousands of people in business. So I was like, okay, I have those skills. I can interview people. And then I had dabbled a little bit in modeling. And I was like, okay, so I can do the evening gown thing. So I applied, and the rest is history there. And that ended up giving me the platform, but it wasn't ever to be Miss Canada. But my goal with it was to hopefully change a lot of things and be of service. And I think I worked with over 80 charities that year. But along it all, the thing was I was doing my yoga teacher training, and through it all, I had to, in a way, condition myself to run for Miss Canada. And through that, I had to lose quite a bit of weight to go on stage in a bikini, which I'm not for at all. I'm completely against that. But I think it was like 60 pounds or 70 pounds that I lost.
Wow.
And in this time, I was thinking, well, I'm the same person. I look completely different, but I'm the exactly same person. So why should I be judged on something that is changing and isn't real? And it really sunk in at that point that I'm not the body. If we can change our not the body, because I'm the exact same person, right? So that was my whole platform as Miss Canada, was focusing on inner beauty, on inner purpose, and knowing that we are not who we are on the outside, which sounds kind of contradictory to what the whole pageantry system is about. But that was my whole platform. And I tried to make a statement by wearing a potato sack on the Grammys, on the red carpet at the Grammys. That was like way back in 2009. So that was kind of the first thing, is, really realizing we're not this body, we're not this mind, we're so much greater than all of that. And through that, I got deeper into meditation and deeper into yoga, and was teaching yoga and was teaching meditation, and did that at multiple festivals all over the world. I went down to Ecuador and taught yoga down there as well. And I actually almost died in Ecuador, which is another thing that happened to kind of like further my spiritual awakening. But what led to psychedelics was actually something that was, it was something that took me a little bit deeper. Actually, it took me way deeper than anything I could ever have imagined. And I was teaching around the world. I was teaching yoga teachers. It was like the perfect life, really. Had an amazing business, had an amazing career, had the Instagram profiles with the handstands and the headstands and all that kind of thing that you think you should have, right? And then something happened in the universe, and I got sick. And that was kind of the thing that really cracked it all open. And it was the universe saying, you think this is the way it's supposed to be? And definitely it wasn't, because if that getting sick is completely devastating, and really facing your mortality is is a whole other thing. But going into that like deep, dark space sometimes has to happen in order for you to like completely deconstruct everything that you think you are and that you think you've built and that you think is, in order for you to open up to all of the possibilities that might be. And that's exactly what happened. And I wouldn't, getting sick is not something I would ever wish upon anyone, but it's something that in a way I'm sort of grateful for, because I wouldn't be like as open as I am to the universe and have
Mm-hmm.
had those experiences that I've had. Just that like that you can feel life, right? You can feel what life is, and it's flowing through everything now, and it wasn't before. So
Mm-hmm.
it's been
Can I
so.
stop you there for a second?
Yeah, sorry, I'm kind of going.
No, it's beautiful. I'm really interested to hear more about your story, and we can continue. I just wanted to comment on that, which is absolutely the greatest awakenings that we have are usually preceded by some kind of dark night of the soul. And it's the times in which we feel the most separated from source, from God, from light, whatever you want to call it, that seems to bring us back in contact with that. And that it's actually an essential part of the storyline that's built into it. You there? It seems to have glitched out for a second. Okay.
Pause for a second.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that is actually essential, and it's kind of built into the whole way in which this realm operates. That we need to go through an experience that takes us away from our truth, that takes us away from the essence of who we actually are, so that we can develop the yearning to reunite. And it's from that place of despair and that place of yearning and that deep, unsatisfied need that we are propelled then into that place. Sorry, I'm not sure if you caught that last bit. It seemed like I got the loading wheel.
I
Oh
got
no.
deep was the last thing. The yearning
Okay.
deep.
Okay. Yeah, from that yearning and despair, that's what creates the drive, the motivation, the need in a way that is, it's like a similar need to the need to eat, the need to sleep, this kind of like you can't even help it but to be compelled to go on this journey of reconnection and finding the deeper truth of who we are. And that's just it's a recurrent theme in the kind of hero's journey for every person that I've spoken to who's had these kinds of awakenings and is in the line of work that you and I find ourselves in, which I guess we're in the business of awakening. And yeah, it's just I think that on a more kind of small-minded perspective, you might look at that and say, well, that's bad. But in actuality, these things that we often see as being bad end up being the greatest catalyst for our transformation growth and end up propelling us into deeper connection with truth and deeper connection with source, which is what our journey in a way is all about anyways.
Absolutely, 100%. And at the time, it might not seem like it. Definitely doesn't seem like it when you're going through it. But it's like when you get through to the other end, like the only thing you want to do is to be able to help other people that are going through that.
Mm. Yeah, I was watching this documentary series last night that was about the Kabbalah, and he was describing, he's like, the energy of the creator is infinite giving, and the energy of the individual as an ego is like infinite receiving. But the journey of realization is kind of transforming slowly from the place of receiving to the place of giving, to where you're not perceiving yourself as lacking anymore, but you're perceiving yourself as being infinite and having infinite abundance to share. And I think that that is like what you're saying of when you go through this experience and you come out the other side just wanting to help people. I think that that is what happens, that we do transform in this way from a small ego self that is only concerned with our own needs to identifying with something larger and realizing that we have infinite gifts to share.
Hmm. Absolutely. And that was actually a big thing that I had contemplated, you know, coming back into the world. I guess you could say I had been away for a little bit, you know, while I was sick, and when you come back and you're defragmented and you're put back to order, it's like how do you bring that service? How do you bring that love back into the world, right? And finding what way to do that was extremely hard for me because it has to be in the most authentic way possible. You know, not saying that, you know, training yoga teachers and teaching yoga and all of that, what I had done before wasn't authentic, because it was from my heart. But it's like, you know, you have to be like 100% on your truth going forward if you, you know, being exactly who you are, not who, you know, everyone thinks or wants you to be, is what I really mean. Just being authentic, you know, and not being scared to be you in all of it.
Mm. So how then did psychedelics come into your path, and how did you get involved with MAPS?
That is another interesting story. There's actually a lot of interesting stories. Let's see here. Okay, so one of the stories that led me to being where I am now, it had to do with a man that I had met on a plane. And I think you probably understand this because I've listened to a few of your Facebook lives and your Instagram lives, and you're into these other dimensions. But I had a plane ride with a man. It wasn't planned, and he ended up telling me that he was a messenger from where I don't know. And he told me that our meeting was arranged, and he told me that I wasn't supposed to be doing what I was doing in life. And he said things would switch and they'd change, and I'd end up moving out west, which I have. And that I just needed to be careful who I trusted. And from that day forward, that meeting that we had, everything really changed. And that actually got me to go to a charity event in Vancouver. And it was for MAPS because Rick Doblin was speaking. He was the founder of MAPS, and Gabor Mate was speaking. And I had previously,
Awesome.
yeah, and I was interested in Gabor's work because through yoga and meditation and counseling, I work with a lot of people who've experienced trauma and who've had trauma. And Gabor does a lot of work surrounding that. And I took his course, Compassionate Inquiry, I believe it's called. And he was speaking, so I wanted to go see him and see Rick. So I went to the event, and I learned more about MAPS and the research that they were doing with trauma surrounding MDMA for PTSD. And that just got me even more interested. At the time, I was a philanthropist and an entrepreneur. So I went to even more events and then donated money to MAPS, and ended up having a lunch with Rick Doblin. And at the lunch, Rick said to me, he's like, "Well, why are you here?" And you know, that really got me thinking, why am I here? You know, what is my purpose? Why? I know that everything is like arranged in perfection for things to happen, and it really led to figuring out more about psychedelic treatment and psychedelic medicine. And I thought, well, in order to really understand this, I need to have my own experience. So and growing up, I had never really, dabbled in psychedelics or anything like that, but I was super interested about meditation. And my meditation practice has, it exceeds 5 hours a day. So I've had multiple interesting experiences in meditation, and I wouldn't be alive without meditation. I wouldn't be alive without going to the depths that I have in meditation. So that got me interested in psychedelics, hearing about the different states of consciousness that can be reached. So I ended up having my own journey, and this was actually during my time of being sick. And during my journey, and actually, just so you know, I haven't talked about this publicly to anyone, so you're like the first person that I'm talking to about this publicly.
Wow, I'm honored.
Yeah. So I'll be writing about it extensively in a book that I hope to publish within the next year or so. Because these medicines are hugely transformative. And for me, I was in a place that I could barely get out of bed, never mind, I couldn't walk. I had to use a cane. I was in extreme pain. It was hell, really. It was hell. And I went through a treatment, which is psychedelic assisted psychotherapy. And you wear a blindfold, and it's about 6 hours, and it was with psilocybin. And everything that I had ever learned about meditation and consciousness and yoga and life came together in those 6 hours. And I had a huge Kundalini awakening. It was extensive, like just feeling the Kundalini rise through each chakra and coming back into my body and going out of my body and coming back in, and just like the understanding and the knowledge and the wisdom that came through in that, you can't even put words to. And it just everything made sense, why everything had led up to and why everything had happened the way it happened in my life. And, there's signs for everything, and that made sense. And my work on this earth made sense, why I'm here, where I come from, all those questions that we have all made sense. And for a week after, I had no pain. I could walk. I could do pretty much everything normally. It's like my illness had disappeared. If you tell that to any doctor, there's no way they would even believe you. And going from being in bed and not being able to walk to having your illness disappear for a whole week is something that is like so interesting. And I remember when I came back into my body from the journey, I remember I came back in and I was like, oh, I'm back in my body. And I was looking at my hands and I was looking at them and I was like, the illness is gone. It's gone. And then I remember saying, no, this isn't right. And then I remember shaking my hands and I was like, oh, it's back. The illness is back. And I was like, this is the way it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to carry this because there's some kind of lesson, not only for me to learn, but for me to be able to use that to help others. So it was a choice in a way to take it back when I came back into this world. But, a whole week without it was pretty nice. And I've hugely, I've come so far since that. That was over 2 years ago now. And but it was, it was that awakening, that moment. And I remember during that time, I'd also studied extensively with a lot of different elders. Malidoma Somé was one of the elders that I had gone to, and then one of the elders in my town. I had done a Native American sweat and had asked my elder for my spirit name, and I remember saying, it's like, I've built all of this and now I'm sick. What do you want from me? What am I supposed to do here on earth? You're taking it away, so what am I supposed to do? And she pulled me aside and she said, Shannon, I'm going to give you your spirit name. And she said, your spirit name is White Eagle Medicine Woman. And she said, you're a healer. And that was like one of the hardest things for me to get. It's because it was like, what is a healer? You know, what am I supposed to do? I don't know how to be a healer. You know, what do I do, and what does that even mean? And that's something that came up in my journey as well. And you know, and that's what I'm trying to figure out. But the big message in the journey when I came back, and the biggest and loudest thing, was do the work, do the work, do the work, do the work. And for the longest time, I was thinking, well, do the work, help raise human consciousness, help humanity, do everything you can to help others. But that's not what the message meant. That was the second part of the message. The first part was like, do the work on you. Do your work, right?
Yeah.
Go through your journey, and that's what the past couple of years have been for me. Like, I can't even start to explain the things I've learned about society and large companies, and oh, it's just, I won't even get into that, but mostly about myself, and I'm super grateful for that. So long story short.
Wow. Yeah, your story is amazing, Shannon. But the interesting thing about it is that, as amazing of a story it is, it's not necessarily uncommon. And people, many people have had essentially miraculous experiences through psychedelics. I've been I've either known people and through conversations have heard about it, or have witnessed firsthand in psychedelic ceremonies people go through tremendous transformations and healings that are unparalleled within the program of Western medicine and science. You know, I did some ayahuasca ceremonies with a man that had cerebral palsy and was in a wheelchair, and then through ayahuasca was beginning to be able to walk again.
Mm-hmm.
And I know somebody else that had severe scoliosis that also through ayahuasca was able to completely heal herself. And I actually helped facilitate a retreat in the Netherlands last year that was working with psilocybin truffles because they're legal in the Netherlands. And I was uh, oriented towards helping people rediscover their creativity. So it attracted a lot of people who had been artists in a past incarnation of themselves, but kind of lost touch with that. And we were using psychedelics to help recover that. But there were also a lot of other people there that had all different kinds of things, and it's all related. Also, our physical health and our creativity and all that. But there was a woman there that had severe back pain for years, and she had never taken any psychedelics before. And after one high dose psilocybin experience, her back pain was completely gone. It's like she went into it. She had an intense journey, certainly, but she went into whatever she needed to go into, and she faced it and she resolved it. And afterwards, it was like a huge weight had been lifted off of her. And I have just experienced this and seen it so many times, and it gives me like chills to think about, because I've been in those spaces in ayahuasca ceremonies and seeing shamans work with people, and it is miraculous what's going on. It's real healing in the kind of the spiritual sense that everybody wants to believe is possible, I think.
Absolutely, 100%. You know, I really don't think I'd be alive today if I hadn't had that experience. And the thing is, though, it's such a, I really wish that, especially, it might be different in countries, but in Canada, it's considered non-compliance if you want to try to receive any kind of medical care outside of the, you know, the conventional system. So for now,
Well,
anyway, because that's what MAPS is working at doing, is legalizing these medicines and having treatment based on, you know, scientific studies and whatnot, so that we can make this available to people and that people can heal with it, as well as in the US. But you know, it should be available, and it shouldn't be considered non-compliance. And it's true healing, because there's so much more than the body. And we've been constructed to think that that's all that there is, which is extremely unfortunate. And I hope with this mass awakening that's happening all over the world that we can move beyond that. And if things, they say that things, problems don't start in the body, they end up in the body. You know, they start in the causal, you know, the astral, the different realms, and then they end up appearing last in the body. And in order to fix them, you know, if you treat the body, you're treating the symptoms, and that's what our conventional medical system does. And that can't heal anyone. That's why they say there's no cure for most of these illnesses, because you can't cure the illness by treating the symptom. You have to go to the root, which is so many more layers deeper than that. It's not in this realm of what we can see with just, or perceive with the senses. It's way beyond that, and you have to go to that, even beyond the mind, like deep into the subconscious, but even beyond that, to order to heal it. That's why it's so important that we have these shamans, that we have this traditional knowledge that's passed down from generation to generation. And a call that I just spoke with Dennis McKenna last week on our webinar that we had, and he said
Cool.
that's something. Yeah, it was pretty. He's an amazing person. Super great to have that webinar with him, and he said that's something that's disappearing. Is that lineage of shamanism and these this medicine that's been passed down from generation to generation, because when they pass on, it's like it's gone, right? So these traditions need to be carried on, and this healing needs to be carried on, and especially if we want to get past all of the things that are happening on this planet right now. Things need to change drastically, and especially the way that we're doing healing. You know, bringing back these traditional healing modalities is crucial to our existence on this planet as a species, absolutely, and our evolution.
Yeah, I think to mirror the personal journey that you and so many others have gone through, we're kind of in that dark night of the soul for humanity as a whole right now, where so much has been, we've perpetuated so many habits and programs and ways of being that are so disconnected from what is authentic and healthy and in alignment for us. And I think that many people are waking up to the realization that this isn't working. And I think that, as painful as that realization might be, I hope that it gives people the motivation to want to change and want to adopt new programs, beliefs, systems, etc., that are more in alignment with our truth as humanity and can help us come into greater collective healing and wellness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, 100%. Has to happen, you know, but there's a stigma out there for multiple reasons. I know Michael Pollan's book really helped me to understand, graded outlining, you know, why in the first place that people look, you know, why do I, you know, mother think psychedelics are drugs, right? You know, and it's because of the conditioning that's happened, because of what happened back in the 60s, right? And before that, these medicines were used for thousands and thousands of years, right? So there has to be a certain reason why people think that they're bad, especially if they haven't even tried them. So yeah, just like it's like a renaissance, right? It's like telling the truth about what really is and what they really do. And it's not only that, but it's like just bringing back all of the tools, not just psychedelics. There's so many tools. Like psychedelics, in a way, I think give you like a peek of what there is, and they open that door and they make you realize that this reality is so much more than what we can perceive and what we're constructed to believe. But there is, you know, going deeper through different modalities, for example, yoga and meditation. You know, with yoga, it's one of the asanas, one of the preliminary steps to the 8 limbs of yoga, just like working out the kinks, and then you get into the higher states, which are like pratyahara, which is withdrawal from the senses, and you do that through practice, through your sadhana, through continuously sitting still and focusing the mind on something, which is one of the higher stages, which is concentration. And then, once you can focus on that one thing and you can still the mind, then you can go into meditation, which is even one of the higher stages of the 8 limbs of yoga. And then beyond that, you can go into samadhi. So there's like so many different tools, and even just like being aware of what you're doing in life is a good way to start. Being aware of this reality, and then knowing that it might not be.
Yeah, there's many ways to get in touch with that source, that the higher dimensions, if you want to call them that. And psychedelics are one way. I think that psychedelics are effective because people in general within our culture are quite disconnected from that. And we have heavy indoctrination into the perception of our reality as being material and of this being it. So psychedelics really help lift the veil with that in a way that I think is necessary for a lot of people. I think in the past, people were kind of more in touch, like the souls of people in the past were more refined in a way, and people had a deeper connection with source and with spirit in general already. So that's why a lot of people were more oriented towards more simplistic practices like meditation, which is very effective as well. I just think that psychedelics, like you said, can really give people the felt experience of connection with something that transcends individuality, that transcends ego and material existence, and that it kind of feels to me that it's a very effective tool for where we are at right now as a human society, based on the density of the veil that exists for most people. But I definitely wouldn't recommend psychedelics for everybody. I think that everybody is where they are on their path, and we all have different kinds of levels of readiness to experience certain things. And so for some people, mindfulness meditation, for some people breath work, for some people yoga, for some people just contemplation and study is the most effective way to go, or at least a place to start. I personally started my journey into spiritual experiences and spiritual dimensions through meditation before I ever used psychedelics, and also through dream work, like lucid dreaming, and also just reading about the psychedelic experience, listening to music that was inspired by it, and seeing art that was inspired by it gave me a pretty accurate analog of that experience, actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not something to go into lightly. That's for sure. Psychedelics, and I remember when I had went in, it was a big trip, and it was quite a heavy dosage, and I was preparing to die. I was sick, I was facing death, and I remember I had a picture. I had set it up it was set up as a ceremony, and I had a picture of my son there. And I remember going in, and I was like, this is for you. This is for my son, so your mom can heal and your mom can be here. And I remember when I went in, that was the biggest thing I was scared of, was leaving this planet and dying, so that I wouldn't. Oh, I think I paused there for a second. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Um,
Okay, I think you're back now.
I'm back. All right.
Yeah, you're back.
yeah, and I just remember when I went in or out, or whoever knows what it is, right? That he was there. And the thing was like, he's always been there. And it's like, he came here to get me, to remind me who I was. And I won't even get you started on my son and the magic that he is, but he's just beyond this world. And I saw that when I went into my journey, that he's always been there, you know, and he's always been, he's like one of us who aren't really, I won't even go into that because that's a whole other thing, but we're not from here.
Right. Well, I think we're all not from here. You know,
Exactly.
like the inception point of our souls is not material. It doesn't come from this place at all. It's a mystery. And that's the greatest mystery, really.
Totally. We always say that we're half human, we're half earth because we're made of like what we eat, and we're half stardust. So that's how we like
Hmm.
half and half.
Totally.
But yeah, it's definitely not something to take lightly, um, and it's something to take with like a lot of reverence and a lot of sacredness, because it is super super sacred. Like going in to find out who you truly are is truly magical. And I remember coming back into this world, and you know, with my purpose. And you know, I remember my the voice was like, you know, you're the mother, go back and get your children because they're forgetting who they are. And I remember coming back, you know, just it it almost feels like this whole awareness is the software, and we're the hardware. And the software in a way is the ego, and it's limited. Our mind in a way is limited because there's no way we can absolutely perceive everything that is what is. There's no way it can fit in this program. There's no way. We can keep downloading little bits here and there, and you know, keep upgrading, but there's no way that we can grasp everything. And that was the biggest thing, is like there's so much to know. There's so much that's greater than what can fit in the mind and what can fit in our perception of what is even what, you know. It's like, yeah, it's just so amazingly beautiful. And to experience that not only through psychedelics, but I've experienced it through meditation, you know, just experiencing the life force that exists in everything, like in the food that we eat, like being super grateful when you like put something into your body, that that life force that is inside of that food is going into you, and it's giving you the ability to continue your mission here on earth, like your life, you know, you're taking in that life. And it's just, it's you can't ever explain it. And I'm not doing it justice, but it's just beautiful. And I hope that like everyone on this planet would have that experience, or be able to experience that sometime in their life, even
I
just
think they
once.
will. I think it's inevitable. I think that the whole path of the soul is to descend into the material reality, to adopt the illusion of separation, and then to experience what, I don't know if you're familiar with the Course in Miracles, but they call it the atonement, the correction, to return, to leave that illusion and to come back into a place of unity and oneness with Source, which, regardless of what kind of spiritual tradition you're following, whether it's Buddhism or it's Kabbalah or it's you know, Christian mysticism, it's the same exact storyline. And I think that this is inevitable for every soul. So I do think that everybody will have that realization like you've had. I think that everybody, people experience those realizations and those transformations of perception in their own time and through different means. But I do believe that every person, every soul does return to unity, and that that's where we're all headed. And that's where we're all headed as not just individuals, but also as a society, as a collective, as a species.
Absolutely, I agree with that.
So I wanted to ask you a bit also about being a reverend and what that means to you and what your relationship is to religion.
That's an interesting question. In regards to religion, well, I'll start out by saying that I did grow up religious. So I did grow up Catholic. Um, there's a lot of stories in that whole regard. But I was brought up to believe that God, as per taught in my Sunday school, was a being that lived in heaven, and heaven was in the sky, and that's what we were taught to believe. So, as a little girl, I had always thought that God was this man that was watching everything that I did. So I couldn't do anything wrong, because if I did wrong, then I wouldn't go to heaven, I would go to hell. And I think it was probably around the age of maybe 9 or 10 that that changed, and things kind of just opened up, because just listening to the news and listening to people having awakening to having different religions opened me up a little bit more to that. And then it continued to grow and grow and grow when I got into spirituality, and even more when I became a minister and did the studies that I did. And through the international metaphysical ministry and my experiences through meditation and psychedelics and everything that I've studied, you learn to realize that there's this essence that flows through you that you experience, and it is the body, it is the mind, it is the life force energy, it is the causal realm, it's the universe, it's everything. So it's not just the body, it's not just the mind. It is, but it is all of that, because it is everything, and it's everything that flows through us. And that is what now I see as God. And so God isn't this one thing, it's everything. And that is what makes it so beautiful, is because you are God, and I am God, and the trees are God, and the grass is God, and the birds are God, and the air is God, and the wind is God, and, well, the air and the wind and the water and the fire and, everything that makes everything is God. And when you can intellectualize that, so you can understand that, but you can also, in a way, know it beyond the intellect. And I think that's really when the awakening happens, is when you really realize that that is God. And God is an interesting word, because there's a lot of conditioning and even trauma centered around that. So sometimes I don't even like to say God, but in a way I think we need to reconstruct God.
Yeah, I agree. I'm cool
Yeah,
with the word God.
yeah, and just letting people know it's not something, it's everything. And I'm only speaking through my experience, which has been extremely profound, centered around this whole essence of God being everything. But at the same time, I remember when I studied with Deepak Chopra, we did a little exercise, and he said, close your eyes and focus on who are you, who are you, who are you. And I remember hearing all these other voices in the room from the other practitioners, and she was saying, I'm a teacher, I'm a mom, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, and I remember just hearing like, well, I'm that, well, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that, I'm that, but I'm not that, and I'm not that, and I'm not that, and I'm not that. So it's like, I'm everything, but I'm also nothing, and 5 minutes later, Deepak came on, and he was like, we are everything, and we are also nothing. We are, it's like we are everything. The universe is within us. What happens outside of us is based on our perception of what is, based on our traumas and our experiences and all this other stuff, right? But what if we can go beyond that? And and just be 100% in the moment and perceive what is, which is, Eckhart Tolle's philosophy as well, as like being in the now, the power of now, right? And just,
Mm-hmm.
that moment and experiencing God every second of every day. And I think that's truly joy and truly happiness, is just being 100%. And I know I'm name dropping now, but my guru, that has totally changed my life, Sadhguru. He was the one that really implanted that in a way into me, and understanding that is just like, it doesn't matter what you're doing as long as you do it 100%. Then you're 100% in that moment, and you're not somewhere else in your mind, right? Then you're truly living in the present. You're truly living in that moment, and you're truly living life. Because if we're like 90%, if I'm 90% on this live call with you and I'm 10% in my head thinking about something else, I'm not truly in the present moment. And that's not truly fully experiencing life. And in order to like fully experience that, we need to be 100% in the moment. And yeah, super grateful to Sadhguru for that. He's changed my life as well.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. We have about 5 minutes left. And yeah, this has been a really beautiful conversation to share with you, really inspiring. And yeah, this is kind of like the most important thing in a way, is just realizing the truth of really who we are. And it's like we have all these animal needs. We have the animal program about, taking care of ourselves, of, having food and shelter, and then that evolving into us having careers or having more wealth or having more power or whatever. But we also can transcend that into seeing that we have everything already, because there's nothing that we are separated from. And that awareness can be held kind of in polarity, in a strange way within our own minds, to be able to still function as human beings and to still take care of our individual needs, but also to orient with that deeper knowing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the hardest part. It's like when you know what you know, how do you still operate and be in this world, but not be of the world?
Well, I think it just liberates you from any kind of density or heaviness, or hopefully you don't take life so seriously when you have that realization, because you realize that who we are is not the self, it's not the body, it's not the life that we live. So pretty much we can just enjoy this experience like it's a ride, like it's a dream, and then, and not take it as being so real.
If we could all just be children.
Yeah. No,
That
but
would
we
be,
are though. We are.
yeah.
We have just kind of like forgotten. But I think children are amazing teachers because they totally embody all of that stuff. They're like
Oh,
my gurus now whenever I meet like a kid, because they really get it. They really get it.
they do. Oh, absolutely. I would love for you to speak to my son someday. We'll have to maybe when we talk tomorrow on the podcast, I'll let you chat with him. But like
Sounds
it's so
great. Yeah.
so profound what they come up with, the things that come through them and the questions they ask. It's like, it's making us go deeper into who we are, because we're reliving these questions that we had as children and now they have, and as parents, like we have to answer them. Like, where do we come from? What is the point of life? Like, how do you answer that? What do you say? What do you say to a child unless you've gone through this and truly like known that experience yourself? Like anything would be a lie other than your experience, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. If you're a healthy person, you probably are still asking those questions, and anybody that claims to really know probably doesn't really know.
I know, right? Yeah,
But
we
I
can't.
think that it's to surrender to and just enjoy the mystery, and to live life in a state of awe, embracing how mysterious it all is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I can't wait to hear about your story tomorrow when we chat on the podcast.
Yeah, excited to chat tomorrow too.
pretty amazing work. So I'm excited to hear about that.
Thanks, Shannon. Well, thanks for your time, and thanks for everybody who tuned in today and listened to us.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of carry on and on and on. So
No, you were great. That was the intention, was to give you a platform to speak, and you speak with such conviction, and it was fascinating. I love this conversation.
me too. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. All right, everybody, and to Shannon, be well, much love, and I'll see you soon.
The Quarantine Sessions podcast with J. Cole.